Here's the $64,000 question for someone like you that creates case studies. How do you prove the ROI of the case studies that you create? How do companies determine whether they're getting bang for the buck? They commission you, you do customer research and the interviews, and you craft compelling narratives, and it looks great, and everyone's really happy. But at the end of the day, how do I know that the money that I've paid Joel is actually driven the results that I wanted?
This is an amazing question, and it's something that you really have to work with the internal teams because there's that whole saying: if you measure a fish's ability by its ability to climb a tree, that's definitely not the quote. But if you look at a fish's ability to climb a tree, you're like, this thing's useless. If you look at a case study's ability to drive one-to-one conversions, you may leave disappointed, especially if you haven't set it up to do that. So how do we measure the impact? It starts by looking at the channels we're going to deploy on. So here are some very practical ideas anyone listening can use to measure the impact. If you're using these things in cold outreach, what do positive response rates look like relative to before and after? What do open rates look like? What do ultimate conversions look like? Assisted conversions, that's one channel. When you're using them in ads, so for example, when you're using them in an awareness campaign, again, how many people are clicking through, how many people are reading the content, and then assisted conversions down the line. When you're using them in remarketing, this is one of the rare instances where a one-to-one conversion rate actually does make sense. One of those hidden gem opportunities for customer stories is using them in remarketing. We had a client, Cart Hook, that adopted the strategy of stopping using or testing against landing pages, sales pages. Instead, they started driving people to a relevant story after they'd already put up their hand in some capacity. The stories started winning. They started seeing a better conversion rate from bringing people back into a story. So there you might be able to measure the one-to-one conversion rate. Other instances, again, talking to sales and saying, okay, moving forward, we want to try to establish some benchmarks with you in terms of time to close or in terms of positive response rates and try to hold them to account to measure how quickly are things closing. Even something that feels very soft and anecdotal, but actually does matter is their confidence in closing. Before, when you get this type of opportunity, how confident are you that you'll close it? Now that you have a story for this particular use case, how confident are you going to close it? Measure that over time. That can be meaningful to leadership. If you're using stories on site, have the opportunity to convert, but the big thing is looking at how many conversion paths are these stories part of. So if you're using a platform like HubSpot CRM, you can see who has engaged and what that looks like. There really is no one hero metric. It's really going to depend where and how you're deploying these, whether in ads or so on. One other one, practical use case that people can measure. Take if you're in software or if you're a services company that has tiers of service, look at your nurture campaigns and how many upsells are you driving? How many new conversations are you spawning? So there's this whole cloud of different metrics that I think you have to look at for your use cases and in aggregate to bear out the value of what you're doing. Because if you only look at that one-to-one conversions piece, that's not what these are typically built for. They're one touch point of 20 plus that someone will typically encounter along that path. So hopefully that gives some ideas and some hard numbers you can look at to support the efficacy of your case study.